Hello everybody, welcome back to another crime story video. Today we are gonna be reading the story called The Walls Have Ears. Alright. The story is written by Ashley D. Neon. I think that's how you pronounce her name. But before we get started, I just want to say thank you for all your support that you guys have given me. If you like my videos, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you never miss another video. And if you want something different, like me to try out a game or something, make sure to put it in the comment section below. Yesterday I recorded 2 different videos. Go check them out. There will be a pop-up on the top right of your screen right now, and let's just get started. She woke up with a start. What woke her? She wasn't having a bad dream. Did she hear something? There. What is that? It sounds like knocking. Where is it coming from? It's not from the front door. It sounds too close. It's coming from inside the wall. Daniel LaPlante was born in 1970 in Townsend, Massachusetts. It's a small town that is only an hour away from Boston. It was founded in 1676 and is proud of its long history. But not all was quiet and safe in this picturesque town, just like any other place. It had its dark side. One of those that lived and thrived in this dark space was Daniel LaPlante. For most of trying to read here. For most of his early life, he suffered physical, emotional, and sexual abuse from his own father. On top of his torture at school, he was bullied at school by his classmates. He was dyslexic and a slow learner, and his appearance was undesirable. He was unclean, unkempt, and suffered from severe acne. His parents divorced when he was a young teen, but by then the damage was done. His mother remarried and put Daniel into counseling to deal with the trauma set forth from his father. It was then Daniel was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or also known as ADHD. But the help Daniel so desperately needed was nowhere to be found. For the next year, Daniel was sexually abused by his psychiatrist, yet another adult male in Daniel's life that took advantage of his vulnerability and mental state. In order to have a sense of control over his chaotic and traumatic life, Daniel turned to petty theft. And he was only 15. Most nights, he would scout around town and break into homes. He started out by stealing small valuables, things that wouldn't be missed or immediately noticed. But he soon grew bored and needed more excitement. He grew bolder and discovered that he enjoyed playing with his victims. At one house, he would steal a few items. The next house, he would simply move things around and rearrange furniture. At others, he would steal things and then replace them with random items he brought himself. It was a game, and he won every time. But one house and one family piqued his interest to a frightening level. In 1786, the Andrews family had just lost their wife and mother. Deborah to cancer. Frank Andrews was struggling with the loss of his wife and partner. He was suddenly a single father, and he needed to be strong for his 2 teenage daughters. Annie and Jessica were just a couple of years apart. They weren't just sisters, they were best friends. Frank worked long hours as a bus driver, mostly nights. This left Annie and Jessica on their own. They were good girls and followed the rules. They were responsible and looked out for each other. Not long after moving into their new home, 15-year-old Annie met a boy. One evening, while the girls were home alone doing home were home alone doing homework, the phone rang. On the other line was a boy named Danny, and he asked to speak to Annie. Danny had gotten Annie's phone number from a mutual friend. Danny and Annie. Why do they both kind of be familiar? Danny and Annie struck up a flirtatious friendship over the telephone. Every night for a couple of weeks, Danny would call Annie, and they would talk for hours. Because they went to different schools, they had never met in person before. Danny described himself as tall and attractive. He claimed he was popular at his high school and captain of the football team. Annie was smitten, and she couldn't wait to meet him. It had been a rough couple of months dealing with the death of her mother. She hadn't smiled in so long, but now she couldn't stop. One night, Danny asked Annie out on a date, a real date. He went to take her to the ice cream shop and then the movies. The doorbell rang and Annie ran down the stairs with butterflies in her belly. But when she opened the door, she gasped with surprise. The boy at the front door couldn't be Danny. This wasn't the self-described attractive athlete. The boy at the door was short and messy, and he had acne all over his face. The boy at the door was a liar. Annie was a sweet girl and had committed to a date with Danny, so she went with him to the ice cream shop, but her butterflies had completely vanished. The date was uncomfortable and awkward. The easy and flirtatious banter of their telephone conversations was nowhere to be found. At some point during this sparse conversation, the death of Annie's mother came up. While the topic was still hard, Annie had needed to confide in someone about the struggle and was hoping Danny could be a shoulder to lean on. She may not be attracted to Danny like she had hoped, but she could really use a friend. Instead of being supportive and sensitive, Danny perked up and began asking questions after question about the details of Annie's mother's death. Disturbed, Annie shut down the conversation and told Danny that she needed to get home. She walked away hoping to see the last of Danny, but her wish would be ignored. Danny was ready to say goodbye. A few nights after the disastrous date, Annie and Jessica were part particularly missing their mother. They decided to have an impromptu seance. I don't know how to pronounce that, so don't worry about it. If they could just hear their mother's voice or feel her presence, maybe the emptiness would go away. They went downstairs into the basement and set everything up: candles, crystals, and pictures. They chanted and prayed, asking for their mother to appear, to speak to them, show them a sign that she was there. Anything, but nothing happened. Disappointed and missing their mom more than ever, they decided to head back upstairs, but not before their mother came down and caught them. He made the girls promise not to, Their father came down the stairs and caught them. Not mother. He made the girls promise not to do anything that foolish again. Their mother was gone and nothing would bring her back. A few nights later, while their father was at work, the girls were doing their homework while watching TV. All of a sudden they heard knocking, but it wasn't from the front door or the back door. Where was it coming from? They listened and waited. Knock, knock, knock. It seemed to be coming from the house itself. It had to be their mom. the Seats work, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. The knocking stopped after a while, and the girls went to bed with smiles on their face. The mom was close by. The knocking continued for several nights. Annie and Jessica hadn't mentioned anything to the father. He didn't believe in such nonsense, and he wanted them to start moving on and dealing with their mother's death. Like clockwork, the knocking happened every night as the girls tucked themselves in bed. But one night the knocking was different. It was more of a pounding, and a sensitive, disruptive pounding that wouldn't end. It happened all night until their father. Uh, looks like she forgot to type something. The girls were terrified. It had been so loud in the deafening quiet of the night. That wasn't their mother. There was something else, something sinister. Did they bring back an evil spirit? Did they invite it into their home? The pounding continued for a few more nights, and it came from all over the house. In the dark of the night, the pounding and banging was terrifying and wouldn't stop. The girls finally confessed to their father about the Seats. They told him about the knocking and how at first they believed it was their mother. He didn't believe them. He thought they wanted attention. He eff, uh, emphatically told Annie and Jessica that there was no such thing as ghosts or Seats, and their mother was never coming back. Frank never heard the begging, and so he refused to believe the girls. He told them that it was just the old house settling. The begging continued at all hours of the day and night, but only when Frank was at work. And now other strange things were happening. Breaking up pipes, doors being slammed, lights being turning on and off, items being moved around and found in all odd places. Fed up, the girls went through the house to investigate. While they were in the basement, they came across a terrifying scene. Scribbled on the wall in red writing, "I'm in your room. Come find me." They ran upstairs and called their father. Their father rushed home, and upon finding the message, he called the police. When the police investigated, they couldn't find anyone in the walls, but they found that the words on the wall were written with ketchup. Frank believed his daughters pulled a prank for attention. He scolded and grounded them. A few weeks went by with nothing but quiet. No begging, no creepy messages. The girls wondered if the evil spirit had finally left. Till one night while watching movies, the knocking started again. Frank was at work and Annie and Jessica were home alone. The girls went upstairs with where the knocking was coming from, only to find another message. "I'm back. Find me." They ran out of the house and to the neighbors. Frank arrived home from work to find his crying and terrified girls. Enough was enough. Frank left his girls with the neighbors and went to the house. Believing it was another prank by his daughters, Frank was started to stumble across a man on the top of the stairs. The man was dressed in Frank's wife's wedding dress and wearing a blonde wig. He had camouflage paint on his face, and he was wielding a hatchet. Frank ran out of the house and immediately called the police. He finally believes his daughters. The police searched all through the house, but came up with nothing. They found multiple messages written on the walls throughout the house, including one of them that said, "Marry me." Finally, one officer noticed a hidden door behind a bookshelf. Once opened, they found not a man, but a boy, a teenage boy. It was Danny LaPlante. For months, Danny had been living inside the walls of the Andrews house. Danny was arrested and charged with armed assault, breaking and entering, and armed burglary. He was sent to a juvenile facility for 1 year. Frank, Andrews, and his daughters, Annie and Jessica, immediately moved out of their house. But the story of Danny LaPlante was just getting started, and it would only get more gruesome. In October of 1987, it was determined that Danny would be charged as an adult for the crimes against the Andrews family. He was transferred from the juvenile facility to the jail. His mother posted his bond. From there, he went to stay with his mother and stepfather. Releasing Danny LaPlante would turn into an awful mistake. Almost immediately, Danny was back to his old tricks. He was breaking into houses again, but one house in particular would prove to be the peak of Danny's criminal history. Andrew and Priscilla, Gus, what are these names? Priscilla Gustafson were a young couple with 2 kids, and they were soon expecting their third. On December 1st, 1987, Andrew, an attorney, left for work as usual. 8-year-old Abigail hopped on the bus and headed for school. Priscilla, a 33-year-old preschool teacher, took her 5-year-old son William to run a few errands. The neighbors recall seeing Priscilla arrive home after a few hours and hustle her youngest inside. Shortly after, Abigail returned home from school. That was the last time anyone would see any of them alive. When Andrew returned home from school that evening, he found his entire family, his whole world, dead. He came upon his pregnant wife in the bedroom. Pascala was lying in a pool of her own blood, raped and shot to death. She was naked and found with a pillow over her head. She had been shot twice in the head with a .22 caliber gun. Andrew, too terrified to find what state his children might be in, called the cops and stayed with his wife's body. But searching the home, police found the children dead. The children, Abigail, 8 years old, and Willie, 5 years old, were drowned in separate bathtubs. Willie was found in an upstairs bathtub lying face down. Abigail was found in the downstairs bathtub, and in addition to the drowning, was found with blunt force trauma to her head. She always had marks around her neck. It is believed that her neck had been compressed while being held underwater. The small town of Townsend, Massachusetts, was a complete shock. Crimes happen in every town, but the brutality of these murders were beyond. Who would murder a pregnant woman and her 2 small children? Detectives had a hunch, and it pointed straight to Danny LaPlante. Danny was currently living with his mother, and his mother looked like she made a mistake typing. Danny was currently living with his mother, and his mother's she did it. And his mother's house was directly behind the Gustafsons. Detectives immediately went to question Danny, but as his mothers answered the door, they heard a loud crash. Danny had ran out the back of the house and was quickly making his way through the woods surrounding his mother's house. Police gave chase after a brief search. They got a call about a hostage situation not far from where Danny made his escape. Danny broke into the home of Pamela McGilla. He held her at gunpoint and forced her into her car. They drove to the next town when Pamela was able to jump out of the car and escape safely. Police caught up to Danny. He was surrounded and was He was subsequently arrested. Here's some pictures of him being arrested. He was charged with triple homicide and found guilty of all. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences for the murders of the Gustafson family. In 2017, Danny's attorney filed an appeal for resentencing due to previous court cases that ruled a juvenile convicted of murder should be given an opportunity to re-engage into society, which I completely am against. In June of 2019, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ruled that Danny LaPlante would not be eligible for parole, and he would continue to serve his life sentences. Until his death in 2014, Andrew Gustafson wore 2 wedding rings, one for his new marriage and one for his lost love, Priscilla. Thanks for watching this. If you made it to the end, make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Right at the top will be another video, my other video, and then on the screen will be a video that is recommended by YouTube and one that I chose for you. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.